Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this Digital Europe Digital Deep Dive. The Digital Deep Dive is a series of webinars organized by Digital Europe to discuss many hot topics, but today we will focus on digital skills and how we can maximize the potential of digital for people and companies. So my name is Mary Montaldo and I'm your host today. I'm part of the project department at Digital Europe. Our projects focus on different pillars, from the twin green digital transition to data spaces, e-inclusion, digital health, but we also have many projects focusing on digital skills. For those of you who don't know us, the Digital Europe is the leading trade association representing the digitalizing industries in Europe. And I will mention as well that today the event is organized in the context of the European Year of Skills that celebrates skills and lifelong learning and empowers people and companies to contribute to boosting competitiveness and talents. So we are very glad to be able to contribute to this goal as well. So to begin, let's talk about the communications around this event. On your screen, you can see that we have the hashtag Digital Deep Dive. You can use it on Twitter, LinkedIn, and tag us, of course, as you want. But something I need to tell you as well is that this event is recorded. So please, if you have an issue with this, you can drop out. There will be an opportunity for all the participants to contribute to this discussion today and throughout the event via our chat. So feel free to, at any moment, post your comments and your questions there for later on. Before we dive into the key discussions today on data spaces and cybersecurity skills, I would like to give you a quick overview of the current situation. So we know digital skills is an important topic, but it's been really taking and gaining momentum in the recent years. And we are now talking about how to equip people with the right skill sets, how to align better the needs of companies and the education and training offering that we have. And maybe more importantly, the question is how we can ensure the sustainable skills development of our workforce. And for that, we need new skills strategies. We need more collaboration between education and training providers and the industry actors, as well as the public sector. And we also need to improve skills foresights. So Europe, as you know, lacks at the moment digital skills and ICT professionals. So some of the key figures is that only 37% of adults participate in training on a regular basis. So there is not enough upskilling or reskilling at the moment. And more than actually half of the European companies report difficulties in finding ICT specialists. And we can also see that there is a big gender gap because only 1 in 5 ICT specialists and graduates is a woman. So basically what it tells us is that we need more specialists in ICT in key technological areas like software, cybersecurity, blockchain, or nowadays also artificial intelligence. And we need to involve more the underrepresented groups and of course work more to getting more women into the profession. There is this target of 20 million ICT specialists employed in the EU by 2030. So the question is, how can we reach these targets? And a lot is related to accelerating actually the upskilling and reskilling of our workforce and to attract talent from abroad, but also, of course, from within the European Union. So for that, we need to understand a bit better what professional roles and what skills people need, maybe in the next 5 to 10 years. So we will be able to cater for, future needs and better align the education and training offering with the market needs. So some of these aspects that I just mentioned, we are addressing them in our projects at Digital Europe, but many other projects are working in synergies, and many other opportunities are there to reach this goal and to implement and design solutions that will help us reach our goals and these targets. So I'm very happy today because we'll discuss those important topics together with experts from the public and the private sectors. The first part of this event is a fireside chat between one of my colleagues, José, and Matthias de Bièvre, and both of them are working together on the Data Space for Skills project. So you will hear more about this, but also more in terms of what is this European Data Space for Skills and what would be the role in the promotion and development of skills in key areas. Then after that, we will welcome five panelists, on discussing the acceleration of cyber security upskilling and reskilling together with my colleague Vincenzo. And I will not go into detail right now because a lot is to be discussed, and you will have the time, of course, to understand a bit better the views of all these experts that we have here today, and that we are very pleased from our NTAs, so the National Trade Association, our corporate members such as Santander and Microsoft, but of course as well from the Commission and from the Swedish representation to the EU. So without further ado, I will now pass the floor to my colleague José and Matthias, and we are looking forward to this interesting discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Marie. Many thanks for the introduction. I'm Jose Martinez, the Interim Project Director at Digital Europe, and I have with me my colleague and friend Matthias, who is the co-founder and CEO of Visions, a French company, and also Prometheus, that is a foundation that is advocating for a more user-centered or human-centered data spaces. Matthias, could you just very briefly introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you, Jose. I'm very happy to be here and to discuss about this very interesting topic. So indeed, I'm the CEO of a company called Visions that was founded in 2017 and that provides what we call a personal data intermediary. So a tool for people to control their data and be able to share it in a trusted way to get access to more personalized services. And the president of Prometheus X, which is a non-profit that unites a lot of public and private organizations to agree on standards, open source building blocks, ethical guidelines to ensure a trusted and human-centric data sharing in the context of data spaces.
Thank you, Matthias. Let's move directly to the questions. So we are going to have a kind of conversation between friends in having a coffee, but without coffee. So the first question from my side will be, what is a data space and what is the data space for skills?
Yes, so I don't know if a lot of people have already heard the term data space, but let's talk about why we need data spaces. If we look at kind of the global trend today across all markets, across all industries, it drives towards personalization of everything. We can personalize your fashion today. You can go on Nike site and say what colors you want on your shoes. You can go in front of a kind of augmented reality mirror and it tells you what kind of makeup, what you should wear. There is a lot about personalization of health, of insurance, of course, education, learning, employment, what we will be talking about, what is the right learning for the person, the right job, the right career, personalization of, in a sense, building in your home. You can put in pictures of your living room and it recommends you what kind of furniture you can have and so on. And this is very exciting in a sense because that's what we want as individuals. We want something that fits our needs and fits our life, and that we can find the best options for us. But in order to go towards that personalization, you heard it, we need a lot of data about people and personal data. And except for a few big companies today, mostly American or Chinese, no real organization have enough data to really do that personalization at scales and be really precise. And this is because personal data is siloed across a lot of different organizations and is closed inside organizations because first, organizations are a bit scared to open up data for legal and business reasons. And second, it's a bit of a vicious circle. Since they don't open it, they don't see the value of opening it. And so they keep on keeping it closed. But we need to open it to address a lot of huge business potential. And the data space is a concept that comes from the European data strategy and that has now about 7 billion euros funding to build the conditions of the data sharing. And they're technological. How do we ensure at a technological level that data is shared, but in a trusted way that organizations and people control what is done with the data? It is also at a governance level. Who decides what? And how can everybody be implicated in those decisions? And it is also at a value level, what are the concrete applications and use cases that make it worthwhile? And so data spaces is a bit this combination of tech, governance, and value to enable that data sharing. And so the data space for skills, it's this applied to the education, learning, employment domain to notably ensure that people can be more precisely matched with the right learning and career opportunities to ensure this upskilling, reskilling that Marie was talking about, but also at an organization level, know better what skills do I have, what skills do I need, what skills will I need, who do I need to train, and so on. And so we were talking about it just before, but there is this project DS for Skills that you've been greatly managing, Jose, and maybe you can tell us a bit more concretely what its role is in this whole data space adventure.
Yes, I forgot to say that we at Digital Europe are the coordinators of this project that is called DS for Skills, that is Data Space for Skills. It is a preparatory action from the European Commission Digital Europe program. And really, we have until October to be prepared for the real implementation of the European Data Space for Skills. There will be a second call for the real implementation of this data space for skills, but what we are doing now is really putting all the key players together to agree what are the steps and what are the different building blocks to make it happen. But to make it happen, we have also very good news, and it is that you, Matthias, you have been awarded with a large-scale project from the Digital Europe program also to start with the implementation of this data space for skill. Can you just very briefly explain a little bit about this project?
Yes, so it's a bit one of the next steps after the DS for skills and the definition of the building blocks. It's a project with about 40 partners from 6 EU countries, and it's employment agencies, employers, universities, high schools, training organizations, employment services, but also HR technologies, education technologies that will come together to concretely implement this innovative value and use cases tied to data sharing. And so it's going to be about how do we better personalize learning for high school pupils, for instance, and how can we best detect how if somebody's failing, what do they need to adapt to? But same for employees. I'm an employee, want to move in the organization, I want to maybe change industries, change jobs. What is my skills gap? What are the opportunities for me to be reskilled? And also for unemployed people, and for organizations to have this kind of broad skills analytics. And so some solutions on these topics already exist, but they can be widely powered and boosted if they have access to more data and more, in a sense, services and artificial intelligences to make it happen. And so this project unites all of these players on concrete projects per country to implement it and test it and scale it. And indeed, we are very happy to have just now received the letter that the European Commission wants to co-fund it. And it's a 20 million euro project in total. And now we are working out the next steps with the European Commission to sign the deal and be able to start as quickly as possible to have these concrete cases implemented. And so you've been talking, Jose, on the DS4 skills and a bit on the blueprint. What are for you through your experience of DS4 skills, the key needs to really make it happen, to go into this implementation phase?
Yeah.
What do you need to interconnect all these data sources and services?
Yeah, probably there are three things that we need to organize before we can go to the real coordinated implementation of the European data space for skills. First is what we have called, or the European Commission have called, the blueprint for this data space. But there are many data spaces that are that the preparatory action is funded by the European Commission in many different fields. But all of us, we have to create a blueprint that is really specifying what are the different building blocks in different areas, like governance, ethics, legislation, technical implementation, etc., that we need to agree and to put in order to go for the implementation. Another important thing is to put all the key players and stakeholders that are important for the data sharing, like employment agencies, universities, even users able to share the data to receive services, to start thinking on how this data can be shared and how to make it happen. And then really another important thing is to have use cases that are valid and that are relevant for the European market. And regarding use cases, as you know, we have been working with the European Commission, DG Employment, with the Swedish government, with the Flemish government, to really start working with them in the definition of these use cases. And then my question for you is, can you explain one of these use cases, the one that you prefer?
Yeah. Yes, I think if we take also what Marie presented, and we need, there are a lot of new skills, new industries, we need to upskill, reskill people. So if we take one concrete example, let's say I'm an employee into a job, an industry that is a bit dying, and I've been laid off my job won't exist anymore. Okay, I need to find something else. I need to continue and progress. If I cannot look for the same job, really, because it's quite industry-wide, though it's not recruiting anymore in that job. So I need to find another job, another title. And what I need to do that is to say, okay, what are the skills I have acquired in my current job? And what are the other jobs that are now recruiting and that could reuse that skill set? And what is the gap between my current skill set and the skill set that is needed in the next job? And how do I bridge this gap? And in order to do that, you need to have information as a person about your current skills attached to your job title, your experiences. You need to have information about the market and what is recruited and what skills are needed, about the gap, and also about all the training opportunities. And today, you do that, maybe you have some counselor that uses some systems, you answer some questionnaires, you get some information, but all this data is closed, as I was saying in the beginning, in your employer's systems, but also in other employers' systems that are recruiting and in all the training providers' systems and catalogs. And so it's quite hard to find the best opportunities and the best path. The career management systems in organizations today show you the next career you can do inside the organization, but not across the market. And so the data space for skills, what it will allow is to interconnect a lot of different data sources about yourself, but also across the market. What are the different jobs, the job offers, the training catalogs, and have it in a kind of aggregated way to be matched with you, and so that you can have in real time what is your skills gap, what are the best opportunities, and what are the best trainings. And this will allow you to much more quickly identify the opportunities, create a plan, and be much more reassured for this transition. But it also allows the employers, the one that is laying you off, to have a smoother process, and the one that is recruited to finding quicker the resources and the skills that they need. And this can only happen if the different employers, the public organizations, the training organizations pull data together to allow this more precise matching and analytics. And this is one, I think, relevant use case that will be very needed across industries, and that the data space for skills will enable, and that the different projects that we are talking about are starting to implement and to study. But so, in your opinion, Jose, when will this be a reality? When will the data space be a reality?
Yeah, we are working together with many different partners and all the key players in Europe to make it happen. As our preparatory action will finalize in October, and then there will be another call for the real implementation together with the project that you will be leading. I have the impression that in 3 years, by 2026, we will have many different solutions and applications based on the European data space for skills in the market, and many different opportunities for SMEs and also many new services for the general public, for the individuals. But we have Matthias, we need to change a little bit because we only have 5 minutes, but we have received some questions from the audience, and one of them is very interesting. Is what do you think is the role of corporation in this data space, apart from re-skilling employees? That this is the obvious one. It's like for the human resources department or the talent department, it is clear that you can, let's say, have the analysis of your employees, what is their learning path, and then what employees can, let's say, be good candidates for a job position. And this is the matching use cases. But what other kind of very good and efficient application do you see in the context of a corporation?
But there is this recruitment part, there is the internal mobility, which is a bit of the same concept of saying what are the opportunities, jobs available inside the organization, and how can people best evolve, be matched, be trained towards that. That would also have a better workforce, more motivated and more retention. And I think also there is a great use case on a more aggregated analytics level to say, have some precise data on the skills I have, in a sense, in my organization, but also I have precise data across the market on what is the forecasting, what skills will I need in 5, in 10 years, in 1 year, and how do I plan my recruitment for this? And how do I also broadcast my needs as an employer towards the training organizations, the universities, to say, look, I've identified this and this need. I'm struggling to recruit. You should start training people, and I'll be interested to recruit them, and that forms a good collaboration. So those are, I think, the main value for the employers. And I would say the role right now would be to get in touch with us and see how we can work with the organization to start designing it and putting it into place.
Yes, thank you, Matthias. And just I will very briefly answer to the question of Massimo regarding the role of microcredential in the digital labor market. It is very relevant, the use of microcredential and digital badge in the context of the European Union, because it will allow final user to share the data about their capabilities or the learning paths that they have achieved. So it will be a very good tool for matching with potential jobs, and also to receive automatic, let's say, push offers from the relevant jobs that are out there in the market. So it will make a more dynamic job market with many more opportunities and with a lot of explicit knowledge about what are your capabilities and what are the job offers that you can apply for. I think, Matthias, we need to finalize our time slot, because my colleague Vincenzo is going to moderate the next section. Thank you, Matthias. And see you tomorrow, and see you on Monday. Bye.
Yes. Bye-bye. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks a lot for this interesting discussion. And before we dive into the panel discussion with my colleague Vincenzo and all the panelists, just a quick reminder for those of you who want to learn more about this project that has been mentioned, the Data Space for Skills. You can go to skillsdataspace.eu and find more information there, as well as contact us, of course, if you need any more further information. So without further ado, I will now give the floor to my colleague Vincenzo.
Thank you very much, Marie, and welcome everyone to our expert panel on accelerating cybersecurity upskilling and reskilling, and how essentially recent initiatives like the Cyber Skills Academy could be part of the solution. I think it's safe to say that today we really stand at a critical juncture. Europe's struggle with the cyber skills deficit is really palpable. And there are many estimates out there, but generally, I think they all point to the stark reality, which is that demand for cyber professionals is really significantly exceeding the supply, which some estimates put to falling short up to 500,000 experts in Europe. And this is not just a statistic, but it's something that is really tangible it is really impacting our businesses, economies, in particular SMEs, and we'll discuss that in our panel. And I think it's important to highlight that it all comes at a time of added pressure from cyber threats and the impending regulations like NIS2 and DORA for banking. So really our focus today in this panel is to explore sustainable training solutions, what's the role of skills validation, and indeed of cross-border public-private partnerships to really address this urgent gap. So as we navigate through this dialogue, I would really like to keep it dynamic. So I invite all panelists to keep your answers concise and focused. And if you also wish to contribute to any question that was directed at other speakers, please feel free to jump in and let me know. And then for the same reason of interactivity, I really invite all people in the audience to post your questions in the Zoom chat at any point during the panel. I'll be reviewing them and try to integrate as much as possible into the conversation. So really thanks a lot. We have just under 55 minutes for this panel, so let's dive in. And I think the first speaker is Miguel Gonzalez Sancho from the European Commission. Miguel, welcome to this panel. You are the head of unit, which in the Commission played the key role in the launch of the Cybersecurity Skills Academy. So I really would like to ask you, how can this academy really help to ensure a sustainable pipeline of skilled cyber professionals for the future? And then where do you see the role of possible multi-country projects like the ADIC that was mentioned in the Academy? Digital Europe strongly supports these ideas, but I'm really keen to get your views on how all that can help to really plug the advanced cyber skills shortage that we have in Europe.
Good morning. First of all, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thanks a lot. That was the first thing. And the second thing, thanks a lot for the invitation. I'm very happy to be here to discuss about this topic with experts. And when I read the little brief for this panel, and well, I see that I really need to be very, very short and to the point, because I think it's 4 minutes that I have. And the question was, how can the academy ensure that there's the right skills are provided? And my first reaction was to say, well, it can't. I explain myself. Ensure, it's a different word that should be used, a different verb, which is to facilitate or contribute. By being a bit provocative, I want to say that the first thing to acknowledge this issue, this problem of the lack of cybersecurity skills is a worldwide problem. It's a very big one. It's not just in Europe; it's everywhere. It's not going to be sorted out, that easily. Perhaps it will never be sorted out fully. But what this proposal from the Commission, this communication does with the cyber, under this motto of the Cyber Security Academy, is to really put this topic on the policy map of the European cybersecurity policy map, because cybersecurity policy and legislation and funding and so has increased very rapidly over the last years, out of acknowledgement that really much more needs to be done. But there is this big challenge that remains, which is the human side of things. So what the Academy does is really to put this on the map. It is a starting point in that regard. It is not an ending point at all. And what the Academy pretends to do is to structure the efforts, because there's a lot, in so much as I said that this is a very difficult problem to solve. I have to also to say there's a lot going on to tackle it as well, including through EU funding and intervention. So how the Academy, the Academy is a short word for European policy on cybersecurity skills, if you like, trying to structure this in a more coherent way. So a couple of important things that this Academy is trying to do is, I mentioned, first of all, to try and put a light on all the things that are being done and to try and align the efforts that exist by identifying also roles and contributions that can come from different key players, institutional ones like ENISA or the Cybersecurity Competence Center, member states, and so, but also acknowledging the role of private initiatives, industry, and so in this space. So the first goal is really to try structure the efforts that are going on. The second, which is quite important, there's a methodological challenge here, which is to say there's a lack of skills or misalignment between offer and demand. Everybody can concur with that. But then, you know, if we want to tackle this, if we want to have a change from what we have today and what we should hopefully have in future, we need to have a conversation about what is it that we're talking about, which skills, which cybersecurity skills, where, because the situation might not be the same in Poland than in Portugal, let's say. I mean, and that is to me, that is a kind of work that is unavoidable, to have this methodological analysis to identify what is the baseline today and what's going to be the evolution from what the academy together with others is going to do to contribute and solve the situation. So you asked me, Vincenzo, about the role of multi-country, let's say, efforts. Might be an EDIC, if it goes in that direction. It might be, you know, structural efforts in the competence center. Well, the basic idea is to precisely to put, in this case, key actors in this area, such as member states, national authorities, because we're talking about skills at the end of the day. We're talking about cyber, and both those things, and even more so skills, are very much in the national remit. So the goal of these multi-country efforts that we're trying to organize is to structure the effort so that there is some sort of common understanding of what the objectives are, but then each one of those should adapt to the national reality and should bring up the picture of what is happening there. So it's this balance between, okay, we can have some European strategic directions, but at the same time, the implementation must be local. Just to conclude, because I think my 4 minutes are over, at least in the communication, at least we mentioned 2 high-level challenges that we have. One is the market, of course. The market, you know, the misalignment between offer and demand of professionals. That's clear, we know. But there's another one which is more in the public sphere, which is all these demands that are now created for public authorities in terms of cybersecurity, regulators and so, and many come from the new legislation that is coming up, NIS2, Cyber Resilience Act, and what have you. There's also, when discussing with member states, they tell us ourselves, we need to have this capacity to address all these cybersecurity challenges. So both in terms of the market needs and public authorities needs, those are two high-level goals that this academy is trying to address. I stop here because my 4 minutes are over, I'm sure.
Thanks very much, Miguel. And you've already addressed many of the very interesting topics that we'll delve into as part of this panel. And we'll now hear from Virgilius Dirma, who is head of EU and international relations in Infobalt. Infobalt is the Lithuanian Association for the Digital Tech Sector, as well as a Digital Euro member. And Virgilius, what can governments do to really encourage SME access to cyber training programs, which are really tailored to these needs? And Miguel was mentioning this possibility of multi-country projects. What's your take on that?
Hello, everybody. My name is Virgilius. Thank you for introduction, Vincenzo. I think it should be noted that cybersecurity is an indispensable aspect of digitization, and cybersecurity is a vital part of digital economies and digital governing, but the discipline is suffering from a pronounced skills shortage. We can identify a lack of European coordination and cooperation towards a common cybersecurity framework as one of the main factors affecting cybersecurity education. and rapid digitization affecting all domains brought cybersecurity into attention of general public. Software and hardware solutions are not evaluated only according to the pure functionality, but also with respect to requirements on cybersecurity. And national and international legislation already contains cybersecurity specific standards that need to be met by manufacturers, government, infrastructure operators, and other relevant organizations. These requirements are often not only technical, but concern also employees of companies, at least for larger organization or organizations running critical infrastructures. Dedicated staff responsible for cybersecurity is required. However, it's not only legal requirement that keep the demand for cybersecurity professionals very high. The commercial sectors, in particular financial sector, advanced manufacturing, and IT, realize that cyber attacks can pose very significant threats. Both financial and reputation losses can be expected if cybersecurity is not adequately addressed. And of course, governments can indeed help to empower member states to act within the framework of multilateral project, thus making sense of the skills gaps and shortcomings in the cybersecurity sector across a range of professional profiles and qualifications. This could be achieved through the following specific objectives. First is innovation. European cybersecurity roadmap should be developed and presented. Establish a European cybersecurity skills framework, update existing and develop and more new professional profiles. Training programs in highly innovative fields are necessary. Creating a digital online publicly accessible cybersecurity skills observatory. Bringing together market needs, profiles, competencies, and training courses on offer. Second thing is an impact. All stakeholders need to be involved in order to exploit the potential of that and cutting-edge subject to ensure growth and job creation in the cybersecurity sector. Of course, increase the use of cyber networks. Promote appropriate frameworks that ensure both quality and better transferability of project of results. And third is sustainability. A long-term partnership between all types of stakeholders is needed to monitor and adopt to changes. It's needs of the sector, facilitate the international mobility of sector stakeholders, provide cross-sector skills, including vocational guidance, career management skills, and access to the labor market, thereby improving the long-term employability. And it's everything for this time for me.
Thank you very much for your insights, Virgilius. Andrea, turning to you, you're manager for digital and green economy at Microsoft, as well as chair of our Digital Europe's Digital Skills Working Group. Obviously, Microsoft is a notable actor in the cybersecurity space. I'm interested to ask you, how are you approaching this cyber skills shortage in Europe? What are your programs in place? And then maybe based on your experience, what you can suggest in terms of public policy actions?
Sure. Thank you, Vincenzo. And I hope everyone can hear me well. First, thank you for the invitation. I'm very happy to join such an important conversation. Before diving maybe into some of the examples of our work, I just wanted to congratulate the Commission for this initiative and all of the different initiatives under the European Year of Skills. We've been looking forward to this since it was announced by Commissioner Skinas a couple of months ago, and it's really great to see the signals, the strategic signals, as Miguel was also saying, coming from the Commission. It's such an important aspect, if we want to get the digital and green transition right, that we also focus on the human side of things. So there are three themes that I wanted to mention and bring into discussion from our learnings and the work that we've been carrying with partners across Europe and beyond. And in a way, I'm happy that some of the things that I will mention have been mentioned by others. It just shows that we are aligned, and then to some extent we have identified, the challenges that we all need to together approach and find solutions to. So firstly, I think we need to better understand the skills gap. As a community, we can't solve a problem we don't fully understand. And we, for example, we have recently launched a new partnership with the OECD to develop a study on the cyber skills gap, understanding both supply and demand for cybersecurity skills in selected countries. So on the demand side, we need to be able to better evaluate the current and future needs of cybersecurity skills, as well as the drivers and those trends that shape them. This is a rapidly evolving space, so we'll have to find ways to be, at least to try to be a little bit ahead of those trends. Then on the supply side, we need to be able to better assess current and projected availability of cybersecurity talent, as well as identify and address the barriers that prevent people from entering or staying in the cybersecurity profession. Then second, I think meeting the demand for cybersecurity skills requires a more diversified workforce. And this has been one of our priorities and the spaces that we have really focused a lot of our work, where we try to identify opportunities for underrepresented groups, women, and people with different backgrounds. We need to be able to address those systemic barriers that underrepresented communities face in accessing cybersecurity education, training, or career opportunities. And it's been a year now that we have launched our cybersecurity skills initiative, and we're working with an ecosystem of nonprofit skilling partners across 13 European countries, and they're playing really a key role in identifying untapped talent and providing them with a fair chance at employment. I personally also think that leaving them out of the cybersecurity workforce only leaves talent on the table and will hurt our ability to close the skills gap. And then third, and it continues to remain a priority, I think, for the Commission and for the member states, building basic digital skills should continue to remain a priority. They are the foundation for cybersecurity skills, and people of all ages, especially the most disadvantaged, will need opportunities to develop essential digital skills on which they can build, more understanding about cloud computing, about cybersecurity, before they can engage in, deeper learning. We are all aware, I think, that these programs, cybersecurity skilling programs, are depth programs. So it's not like, someone has entered online learning path and they have gone through it, and then we just say, hey, we've skilled one person. It's long, it's technical, so it takes time to build those skills. But those basic digital skills are extremely important and should continue to remain a priority. And then I think a final point, we have focused a lot of energy in the space, but this is not a problem that we can solve alone. So it's too large, and I think, as Miguel was also saying, we should be optimistic that we can do a lot, but it always feels like we're catching up and we're not ahead of the challenge. So our approach has been to partner with educational institutions, nonprofits, governments, businesses, small and medium-sized enterprises as well, to develop those programs that meet unique market needs. So these programs are grounded in data about the cybersecurity skills gap in each country and designed to promote and increase diversity in the industry.
Thank you very much, Andrea, and very interesting points I think you've raised on around measurement, around the role of building a more inclusive workforce, the barriers to address here when it comes to really getting more people interested in this field. Let's now move to Marina Nogales Fullwood, who is Global Head for Cyber External Engagement at Banco Santander, also Digital Europe member. You represent the financial services sector in this panel, and I think it's safe to say that is one of the verticals which are among the highest spenders on cybersecurity due to the constant need to comply with new regulations, among others. And I'm just interested to have your views on what type of measures can really help you and your industry to really address cyber threats in an effective manner. I think you're on mute, or at least I cannot hear you. I would turn to my colleagues. I don't know if it's if others are able to hear Marina. I'm not. No, so it looks like I'm not the only one.
Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Perfect.
I wasn't on mute. It must be a Zoom thing. But thank you, Vincenzo, and thank you, Digital Europe, which always provides very, very interesting discussions. I think I'm actually going to echo a lot of what Andrea said and also what Miguel mentioned earlier. But I mean, you mentioned, you know, as a bank, we have a very large kind of cyber team, and I think, you know, we've been called upon for many years as kind of the main target for cyber crime. So this requires, you know, a lot of people. And while there is a massive skills gap, I think there's also an opportunity. I think, you know, Andrea touched on it. Cyber is one of the disciplines that requires a greater variety of skill sets, I think, than any other sort of sector in technology. I mean, you know, we have anything from comms experts to policy professionals to forensics experts. I mean, we have a bit of everything. And what was a massive surprise for me when I joined, I don't come from a technical background, and I used to lead the threat intelligence team. Was the amazing amount of variety. You know, we have anything from, you know, people who study psychology or philosophy, and then obviously the more technical careers from like physics, pure maths, and obviously IT. So I mean, I think that's a great evidence as to how diverse this can be, and you know, and not just from kind of your more academic skill sets, but also all walks of life and languages, to address this kind of the global threat of cybercrime. That's why I think the Cyber Skills Academy is great. I mean, I think the time was ripe for a European-wide initiative to help shape and define cyber careers. And, you know, the skills that anybody who's interested, even those who don't think they can access because they're not technical enough or they don't know anything about cyber, if they're interested, they need to know what they can do to work in cyber. And I mean, that'll be great for people to reshape their careers or to sort of deepen in certain areas. But also, I think it's going to be a massive, it's going to play a massive role in attracting diverse and valuable talent for companies. As to the role of the private sector, I mean, I think we have a very significant role. I mean, and I think most of what I do in my current role is aimed at public-private collaboration. And I think this space is key, you know. I mean, I think we all have a very large part to play, and I think especially large companies such as Microsoft, for instance, or ourselves in the banking sector, we need to work with public institutions. We need to drive this forward, help define those careers or those skills that we see that we currently need, and you know, in the market, and then, you know, there's I don't know how aware everybody on this call is on the Cyber Skills Academy, but, you know, these pledges to offer training to develop these skills in accordance to what we require in the private sector. And then I think there's a very important aspect of communications, right, to make this as visible as possible. So I think there is a lot there that the Commission does really, really well, but I think we have to support that, and you know, maybe make it the go-to place for that development of skills. So I think that there's a lot of work to do. I think there's I think it's a massive and great initiative that we fully support, and need to drive forward.
Thanks a lot, Marina, for your comments. I think strong point on public-private partnerships and how to integrate also people from various backgrounds into this space. Thanks very much. Let me now introduce Anders Lindahl, who is Education Counselor and the permanent representation of Sweden to the EU. Obviously, we're very happy to have you, Anders, representing the Swedish presidency of the Council here. So I looked at the figures, and I think generally they all point to how Sweden essentially has, among all various members, it's one of the highest proportions of ICT specialists as a percentage of the total workforce. Skills and training are a national competence, and I think Miguel also touched upon that before. But we also know that in the cyberspace, attacks which are localized can also become cross-border ones. So I was just wondering if you can elaborate on how basically member states, including Sweden, can strike this balance between the necessity of maintaining national competence in this space with the benefits of cross-border collaboration to really address the cybersecurity skills shortage.
Yes, thank you very much. And yes, I will try to maybe answer it a bit from the education side, since this is my field. Of course, as you pointed out, education is indeed a national competence, but we do have quite an extensive cooperation in education in the EU. And the EU does support the member states to develop strategies, to fine-tune their education system, to look at best examples, to create joint projects, to create joint initiatives when they are needed. And of course, we have a number of European programs that also can support us financially with that. Erasmus on the educational side, of course, being the most known one, and maybe it's mostly known for people, giving students the opportunity to go to other countries, but it can also fund concrete projects around specific educational needs. We do have, I mean, at the moment, we are negotiating an initiative or a recommendation that came from the Commission on the 19th of April, which is the proposal for a Council recommendation on improving the provision of digital skills in education and training. And in that, there is a number of things pointed out where the member states can join forces and incorporate more together in ensuring that the education system is more ready for the skills gaps and the skills need for the future on the digital side, and including cybersecurity. I mean, the objectives that we set for ourselves is that 80% of all Europeans by 2030 should have basic digital skills. I think we are not even at 60% at the moment, so quite far off. And we have also set the objective that we should have 20 million ICT specialists. And I think by their latest calculation, we have around 9 million. So we really do have an enormous skills gap in digital skills. And this, of course, includes cyber skills. And to do that, we need from the educational side, need to look at the supply side, to look at the education system, to look at the educators, public educators, higher education, vet education, but also, of course, adult education, upskilling, reskilling. How could we really improve those systems so that people that are in sort of declining industries, but with a relevant competence, can be shifted towards the digital sector and also cybersecurity sector, and they can be supported in a way that they can make that transition. I think that's really important, because it always takes time to change the basic education, and it also takes time to fundamentally change the higher education system. But the adult learning and the upskilling, reskilling, especially in cooperation with the private partners, can be much more agile So for really addressing this in the coming years, I think a lot of focus needs to be put on upskilling, reskilling, adult education, making sure that a much bigger portion of the European workforce do go through upskilling, reskilling every year. So that's really an important, I think, task for us all. I think you pointed out that Sweden is quite successful in having ICT specialists. I think one of the reasons for that is that we have a tradition of adult education, upskilling, reskilling. We are the only EU member states that today reaches the objective of 60% of all adults doing upskilling and reskilling during the last 12 months. So we have a very strong tradition of upskilling, reskilling, and I think that has been very much focusing on the upcoming industries, including the digital sector, and I think also so that's one of the reasons why we have in comparison quite a big number of ICT specialists. So yes.
Thank you, Anders, and very interesting point there on the role of lifelong training. So let's return to you, Miguel. And I wanted to touch upon a point that was also raised in the discussion prior to this expert panel, which is that of the role of skills validation and recognition, including of micro-credentials. And I think one of the interesting points for us in the academy was indeed the mention to micro-credentials. Can you just elaborate how can this type of efforts contribute to developing a more resilient cybersecurity workforce? And maybe do you see any low-hanging fruit from this validation, recognition efforts in the short term? Anything that can be already achieved in a realistic fashion over the short term? You're on mute.
Yeah. So this topic of certifying, recognizing, acknowledging the skills, cybersecurity skills available, it's something that actually when we started in the Commission to discuss about presenting this policy proposal, it's something that came very early on the table. And the idea being that if the goal here is to facilitate, the alignment somehow between offer and demand, and stimulate certainly the offer of skills, it is important to identify what exists and what doesn't exist. This goes back to the point that I mentioned before about the need for some methodological work to really pinpoint what are the gaps and what is needed, and who can have those skills, or who can have the potential to acquire them. And several speakers have mentioned the issue of diversity, which is quite important. But then, it occurs to me that an important point here is to have this aspect of acknowledgement, recognition, transparency. So basically, on a very macro level, I would say that we come from, very broadly speaking, from education systems that were quite structured, and with diplomas and what have you, and you got out from university with certain credentials, and then you go on the job market. But now the environment is very different. The environment is very mobile, very dynamic, and that poses a challenge. That poses a challenge because there might be a lot of potential out there that is not acknowledged. Of course, there are courses that exist and certificates, but very often I have the impression each person has to cater for that and to pay for the courses, which tend to be quite expensive. I mean, to get some of these cybersecurity certificates, unless the company you work for pays for you, but that can be a challenge for those that are entering the market. So the idea of the of addressing this issue of certification is to put a spotlight into how this recognition of skills cybersecurity skills can be, facilitated. And you asked for a long-hanging fruit, and well, I don't know about that, but I mean, we came across this framework for recognition of micro-credentials that exists already. That is something that comes from the, let's say, horizontal education field, and it was our colleagues from the employment that were explaining to us that there's a framework that exists, and the member states, they have their national kind of mirror of that. So we were saying, okay, let's mention this because this is interesting. This is this idea that you don't have to go through a very lengthy course. Perhaps you have specific targeted skills, micro skills in this sense, that can be useful to somebody out there that is looking for this kind of talent. So I don't know if this could be called a long-hanging fruit, but that's something to consider. Basically, there's a lot which is happening on the market. This is an area where market takes care by itself of providing many of those courses and certificates and what have you. But here, the goal is to see how we can have some matching, if you like, some alignment with that, and the more kind of traditional kind of public authorities type of work on traditional education, and for certifying the acquisition skills. So to conclude on this, I think a bit of a conundrum here is how to match the dynamic contributions that exist out there from the market. I would call it like these private initiatives that can be for a fee, or can be not for a fee, and the pledges of the academy have been mentioned. So it is clear that it would make sense to start something from scratch, and member states would come with the schemes, what have you. We really need to base ourselves on what exists today in terms of efforts, and look into how this can be those existing skills can be certified or acknowledged, if you like, or assessed. And it seems to me that's well, we're looking for long-hanging fruits. That was your question, and really this academy is looking for that. Who's doing what, and how can we build efforts and align the efforts that exist amongst themselves, and certainly to connect them to the strategies that member states have in terms of cybersecurity policy, but also more general in terms of more general education strategies. I'll leave it there. So a key topic, certification and acknowledgement of skills, a key topic to be addressed. I don't have a solution. The academy doesn't have a solution. It just says it definitely needs to be tackled.
Thank you, Miguel. And I'd like to remain on this topic of including micro-credentials into national qualification frameworks, and turning to you, Anders. From a national perspective, I'd just like to get your take on this opportunity that Miguel was just discussing.
Yes, I mean the micro-credentials as we adopted, or as the educational ministers adopted last summer, it really tries, I mean the objective is really to structure the landscape of shorter, more focused courses, so they can complement, as Miguel pointed out, so they can complement the more traditional long-term education in a much more focused way. And of course, the benefits of this initiative being, or this recommendation was adopted at European level, is that we can then develop courses and micro-credentials that sort of keeps to a European format, which really addresses the problems that Miguel pointed out, that recognition across border, recognition across education providers is difficult. There is a general lack of trust many times between national education systems, between different types of education providers, and of course having it standardized, having it included into having national qualifications framework and the European qualification frameworks does make it visible, it makes it more comparable, and it reduces a bit of this distrust or this that exists and the lack of transparency that exists that hampers the cross-border flows of competence and talents, and make the transitions easier. And also, as I pointed out, I mean, micro-credential is really a very good tool if you want to change from an industry that is sort of declining towards a new industry, but where you have a set of skills that are relevant also for the new area you want to go into, but where you lack some of the sort of the very top qualifications that you need. So, I mean, micro-credential is really an opportunity for many to make the transitions towards more industries where you have a high demand as cybersecurity. So I really believe that micro-credentials is a very useful tool, and the more we can standardize it, the more we can include it into the system, and we can provide more and more transparency between countries and inside countries, the better, the more effect we will have from it.
Thank you very much, Anders. Marina, now turning to you, I would just like to have your quick take on how essentially what does the success of the academy look like in let's say 2, 3, or 4 years from now? Are there 2, 3 areas where you'll say, okay, you know, we managed to achieve that through the academy? That's really a successful effort.
Okay, well, that's a good one. I mean, I think for me, we're thinking about the short, medium term. If the academy could become that one-stop shop, right, for both professionals and employers to sort of see what skills are needed, and even, you know, I know that there's an idea of having a pool of experts. That would be an absolute game changer. I mean, I think having something at European level that even homogenizes these certifications that people need. And I really like this idea of micro-credentials, for instance, because I think it would be a much easier path for many people who want to change maybe, or who need sort of to give their careers a little tweak. I think it would be amazing if we could sort of offer a wide range of certifications that are affordable even. Because I mean, I don't know. I mean, the certifications market at the moment is massive, and it's very lucrative, and not everybody's in everybody's reach, right? So I think this would be really good to attract fresh talent. As I think many of us have said, it just needs to be adopted by as many stakeholders as possible, so it can become this kind of this ideal go-to, you know, for those people who wish to develop skills, but also for employers, right? So having that very widely known kind of easy path, you know, I want to become a cyber professional, and I'm currently a philosophy major. Hey, there's the EU Skills Academy is like that first place I think of. I think that's the key, but it does take time and it takes a lot of effort. We've talked about awareness raising. I mean, changing cultures in people's minds is always a challenge, and it takes time, right? So this is why I think we must play a key role, and I think Digital Europe, for instance, is very well placed to do this. And obviously with this sessions like this, but public and private sector alike, as I said earlier, need to work together for this.
Thank you, Marina. And now, Andrea, same question. What does success of the academy look like in 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now?
Yeah, I think first, I think the way the academy is structured is great, and those 4 pillars kind of are looking to address the challenges that we have mentioned. And I think I'll start with the fact that raising awareness about cybersecurity career options is really key. So we should start early to create that pipeline of talent and break possible misconceptions. I also don't have a background in tech, and I work for a technology company. If someone would have asked me a few years ago before joining Microsoft whether I would eventually end up working for a tech company, I would have probably said, no, why? But things have happened, and being part of a tech company, it's just you understand that it's not as technical sometimes, and there's just such a variety of roles that people can have. And then the other thing I think is important is better measurement and the ability to map demand and supply. This is really the foundation, and this is something that will set us up for success. So again, it's great to see that part of the academy. And then another point, really the fact that we're looking to double down on efforts to create ecosystems that can help scale programs, and also say that employer engagement and that private public partnership is essential. So when we're thinking about designing cybersecurity trainings, it's crucial that we look to understand, what are the needs of the market, and making sure that those trainings correspond to those needs. So stronger links have to be created between education sector and firms, both in the tech and non-technological industries, because companies both in tech and not in tech need those talents. So small and medium-sized businesses, thinking about all sorts of initiatives such as mentorship, curriculum co-design, internship programs, really helping to assist learners in gaining professional experience and understanding of what it means, to pursue a career in cybersecurity. But again, I think all of these things are mentioned as part of the different pillars. I think we need to continue to have these conversations. We need to continue to have, to see where the needs are locally, and how do we continue to build those local ecosystems.
Thank you, Andrea. And Virgilius, your take from an SME angle. And we're running out of time, so I'll ask to keep the question, the answer short, because I would also like to then introduce a question from the audience.
The future is always as uncertain, and we cannot predict what lies in this field ahead. Not in the coming weeks, not in the following months, or certainly not in the years to come. Each passing day with cybersecurity issues hold the potential for unforeseen circumstances that could disrupt our lives in unimaginable ways. And however, amidst this uncertainty, there is a vital question that demands an answer. How will we respond? And real success of academy will be when we all agree on a common approach between all parties, and we will be able to make our choices together when everyone knows what they are doing, when there is a cybersecurity industrial plan and concrete European cybersecurity skills strategy in place, and continuously evolving. It must focus on finding concrete recommendations and sustainable solutions that will help to bridge the skills gap between industry requirements and the sector's training offer, and contribute to the growth, innovation, and competitiveness on the cybersecurity sector, I think.
Thank you. This was a concise but also very comprehensive answer. So thanks very much. We have one question from the audience, and that is directed to our industry panelists here, which is about really the barriers for public-private partnerships on cyber upskilling. Who wants to address this one? Andrea, Marina, or Virgilius? Maybe you, Andrea?
Sorry, I've lost the button to unmute. Sure, I think we just need to, come together and talk more and identify those opportunities. I think, the challenge that we sometimes see is that across Europe, we have such a variety of systems. We have such a variety of approaches when we look at education and training. and when you're trying to scale, so, you know, I can give an example of a very successful program that we have. For example, in Belgium, we work with Molengeek. I think many of you are probably aware of the organization and the Belgian Cyber Command. And that is very specific to Belgium. Now, if you move to Spain, you know, you will have to identify the local stakeholders that are, you know, engaged on this topic. And it goes the same for all the countries. So I think the fact that we have such a variety of ecosystems across Europe is a challenge, but it is also, I'll say, an opportunity to exchange and learn, because maybe something that we're trying to do in one country might not apply to another one, but there's things that that we can learn. So I think somehow finding a way to share some of those learnings across you know, the different member states will potentially help and you know, bring up new opportunities and bring up new initiatives that that we can build on.
Thank you, Andrea. Maybe your take, Marine, on this issue. What are today's barriers for public-private partnerships in this space, and maybe a couple of suggestions to address them?
Yeah, I mean, I think it is a challenge because there are so many different initiatives, you know, and global companies such as ours kind of, you know, we could have initiatives in different spaces. I mean, not just skills, but so many different initiatives that you're part of. I think at the moment it's, you know, from a collaboration perspective, there's more and more that atmosphere for collaboration. So that I wouldn't call that a barrier, more solution. You know, I think more and more private sector is working together, public-private increasingly working together. I would say the lack of a kind of a centralized initiative. And it seems, you know, it seems very convenient that I'm mentioning this in this current session because we're discussing the Cyber Academy. But I mean, I think this is what we were waiting for to sort of speed that process up. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of, I can think of quite a few kind of consulting companies or large corporations that have kind of their own skills academies, develop skills, etc. But we need something centralized, I think. Yeah, that's what I would say. I think that's why I think we should all pour our efforts into the Skills Academy in Europe.
Thank you very much, Marina. And we're really now drawing to a close on this very insightful discussion. And I would like to, first of all, thank all panelists and attendees for your active participation and contributions. I think the discussion that we've had today really serves as a testament to the urgency of this problem, real problem. And I think, you know, I take from as takeaways from this discussion the role of public-private partnerships. We've addressed micro-credentials, the role of building a more inclusive, larger cybersecurity workforce, and also the importance of, I would say, mapping what's going on across Europe, measure skills availability, shortages, and I think also the role of awareness raising activities, including at European level. So these are all important topics. And I think discussions such as this one can really help to build a more cyber-secure Europe in the future. So with that, thank you very much again. See you next time. And I now give the floor to my colleague, Marie.
Thank you very much for this interesting discussion. So what have we learned today on how to unlock the potential of digital for people and companies? So there was a lot of good insights during these conversations. So it will be hard to really have a very accurate summary, but I'll try to do my best and to emphasize a bit what were the key messages as well from the discussion on data spaces and those on the cybersecurity skills. So what I retained from those discussions is that, first of all, we need to better assess the need for digital skills, and especially, of course, in key areas such as cybersecurity. And of course, the Cybersecurity Skills Academy will play a role in that. We need also to be more inclusive in the way we approach skilling, reskilling, and upskilling of people. We need to give them the learning pathways, and we need to lead them to being able to close this skill gap and be part of the digital economy. Of course, data here will be key, and the European data space for skills will be one of the cornerstones to having this systemic impact in skills development for all. We mentioned as well, public-private partnerships and collaboration, and a whole of society approach, I think, which is necessary to address the skills challenge that we have today, but also in the future. There are some mentions of recognition, but also micro-credentials that will play a role in facilitating, recognition and talent management and recruitment across member states, but also, of course, the upskilling and reskilling, which are one of the key aspects of the discussions. We should adopt, of course, a European approach to that, but maybe more importantly, it's tailored approaches to the national and regional levels. Things that are working in Spain might not work in Sweden, and vice versa. But of course, there are some key elements on which, at the European level, we agree upon, and we should, aim to. And finally, I think one of the key points is also to approach skills with a sustainable perspective. So having a view, foresight into the future roles and the skills needs, which in turn, help us anticipate rather than react to the market urgencies that we have today, and hopefully that we can close in the future. So I will mention now that this event recording will be made available to you and will be published on our YouTube channel, so you will be able to revisit this webinar. I would like also to take some time to thank all of our speakers today for their insights, for their leadership on these aspects and key topics, and to see that, it's really, I'm really glad to see that we agree on the foundational approaches that we have to make more efforts and have a more structured way of approaching those challenges. And I think this is one of the key aspects, and if we are all in this together, we can probably reach our goals. So once again, thanks, and thank you to all the participants today who have joined us. I hope this was an interesting and insightful discussion, and I hope to see you in one of our next events. So on this, have a good afternoon and see you next time. Thank you.